In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to embody the state or a state, and it's going to apply to whatever desire you guys have. So whatever it may be that you want, just apply what I'm going to show you in this video towards that, okay? And it's going to be super simple and we're going to have fun. I'm going to try to not make this a super long one. So as you already know, I'm Michael from embodythestate.com, and before I get into that, I just want to give a little heads up to my voice message and email clients, and for obviously the ones that I do calls with, this doesn't apply to you because you get me directly live. For the voice messages and emails, I'm catching up to a bunch of you guys. I had so many new clients come in and even old ones come back. And with the voice messages, I've had a bunch of people send me like ones that are like over 10 minutes long. I even had to put a disclaimer like, hey, like keep your stuff below 10 minutes, otherwise it screws up everyone else. So I'm getting through a lot of them, and I got through a huge chunk of them, majority of them. For the ones that are left, don't worry guys, I didn't forget about you. I'm getting to you ASAP in the coming days. So hang tight and bear with me, and thank you for the patience, guys. Now, let's get into the fun part. So regarding the state of the wish fulfilled, right? How do you embody a state? How do you guys, in a sense, like how do you even know you did it? Like these are all questions I get all the time. I get these from clients, I get this from viewers. Some people, you know, email me, they contact me through the contact form on my website, whatever it may be. I get a bunch of questions regarding states, and it's so simple, and I'm going to tell you what I tell my clients. I simply ask them, when I do the exercise with them, especially on our one-on-one calls, and I'm like, okay, so you see what you're feeling now? You like notice everything. I tell them, analyze yourself. Does the way you feel now, did you feel the same way 5 seconds ago or 10 seconds ago? And they always say no. And then I can hear like a smile in their voice because they realize like, oh my God, it's so simple, and like I had no clue. And that's what I'll ask you guys. So when you embody a state, and you're not sure if you did it right, you know, because that's the biggest concern a lot of people have is, am I doing it right? Ask yourself, I was aware of a desire, and then I experienced having it within myself, and then from that moment analyze, do you feel the exact same that you did 5 seconds ago, right? And the reason I ask people this, and you know me, I tell you guys, emotion is not the thing that you should be chasing after, but it is an indicator that you have changed a belief in that moment. In other words, you've entered a different awareness, because remember, you can't experience an emotion, whether it's positive or negative, unless there's a belief that allows you to even experience that emotion. It doesn't go fear first and then belief. It goes belief first, and then that unlocks fear. Same thing with relief or fulfillment in any form, gratitude. It's belief first, and then that comes afterwards, right? So I tell people, use your emotions as an indicator, right? Because think about it. If you're manifesting money and you go from being broke to then the awareness of actually having that money you wanted, that financial freedom, that abundance, whatever number that you want to have that month, that you have a burning desire for, if you finally reach it and you jump to the awareness of finally having it instead of looking at it as if you're trying to get it, for just a split second, you're going to notice a shift within yourself, right? You might feel lighter, you might feel relieved, you might feel grateful, you might feel like me when I was manifesting, you know, early on, I was manifesting, you know, abundance, because at the time I was working a job that I hated, and it paid well. It's just, it wasn't what I wanted. I knew I was capable of more. And I started focusing on what it would feel like if I had certain amounts of money coming in per month, what it would feel like if I could, you know, buy, you know, pay for dinners and stuff, which I do when I go out with friends and family. And it's like, well, what would it feel if I had this capability now? And I put myself in that thought, and I just really experience it. And I noticed that my chest would puff up and my chin would go up, and I'd be proud, right? And that's the thing. So many people, you know, it's like they overcomplicate. And this goes for love as well, right? And I'll even show you an example. So one way to embody a state is simply asking yourself, right? And keep in mind, before we even go into this, techniques, I tell clients this all the time. It's like at the beginning of your journey, it's okay to use techniques. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to think that you have to be able to just decide like that. Trust me, that comes naturally through consistent effort of returning to states, whatever they may be. And when you realize after a little bit of experience, and when I say a little bit, I mean like a week of just practicing, or even less, honestly, you will notice that it's like, hey, wait a minute. I understand when I get this thought or the desire in my head, and now I'm aware of it, I get to then do a technique which then leads me to this state. And you're going to realize, wait, I can get there without having to do the middle part, the technique. And if you reach there, great, right? And that's what I do in my day-to-day life. I don't do techniques anymore, really. And, you know, this is actually a common thing. A lot of people, when they practice returning to states and practicing, you know, embodying different states, they realize like, hey, I don't have to do this, you know, I don't have to create an image or view an image in my head and then react to it and things like that, or whatever you do. And you realize, wait, I can get the result of saying an affirmation and believing it minus the saying it part, right? I can just simply decide, wait a minute, boom. And you'll get there naturally. So an example, like one way, the first way is ask yourself, right? As soon as your desire pops into your head, and this is the important part, you have to start practicing getting aware of your awareness, right? I tell clients all the time, think about what you're thinking about. Just randomly throughout the day. It's like you're a supervisor on a construction site. You enter it and you walk around the job site and you just evaluate what's going on. You see what's happening and you're just there quietly observing, and you're seeing if there's any mistakes, if there's anything dangerous going on, and you're just really in the moment. And that's what I do, right? And just like returning to a state without the technique, it's the same thing. You start doing this automatically when you start practicing this. So when you start being aware of what you're aware of, so let's say you go from your computer to your fridge. In between that walk, you're obviously going to be thinking of things. You are going to be, in other words, I don't know how many thoughts, I can't tell you, everybody's different, but let's just say you're going to have a few thoughts from that little journey from the computer to the fridge, and then from the fridge back to the computer or whatever, couch. It's in those moments you kind of want to just pop in there, right? Practice the habit of like, what am I thinking of? Am I aware of my desire? Am I thinking of my desire? And if you're aware of your desire, in that moment, what I want you to do is ask yourself, whatever I'm thinking of. So it's like, let's say you're like looking up or whatever, because like some people when they think, they just look up. So let's say you're like thinking and you're like, okay, I'm thinking of my desire, and right now I recognize I don't have it, and that's okay. Like that's number one. It's okay to understand you don't have it now. But that is also the moment where you decide, okay, let's do the technique, or one technique, which is, how would it feel if this was true? So if you're manifesting love, right? Whether it's, let's say someone that you've never dated before, right? And then I'll do an example with an ex. So let's say it's someone you never dated before, but you have an idea of what it would be like to hold their hand. You have an idea of like what it would feel like in that moment of, maybe hugging them or cuddling them or kissing them, whatever it may be. So if you're thinking, like for me, as an example, I love holding hands. I love, walking around the mall with my partner. I love surprising them and hearing the joy in their voice and stuff, right? So if I'm manifesting someone, and let's say someone that I never dated before, I would obviously have an idea of, and there's two ways to do it. So the first way is like, of course, you don't just decide it. You kind of think of what that thought would, like what that life would look like. So it might be, okay, if we were holding hands at the mall, and you might, in that moment when you're aware of that, you might see a snapshot, right? For me, honestly, most of the times, I know this goes against, what some people say, like Neville has talked about it, but in my experience, it doesn't really affect me negatively, and I don't believe it does, and that's why I'm telling you guys. It's as if I hired a professional photographer, and that photographer is like in the background hiding, and it's taking a snapshot of me and my partner, right? Or me with my desire. And when I see that picture, when I think of me and my partner holding hands, it's like, okay, I wish I could hold hands with them, and I'm thinking of it. In that moment, I jump into that thought, and I'm like, what if that was true? What if in what if in that moment I was actually there? Like, what if that was actually true? How do I think it would actually feel like? And I don't mean holding their hand physically, like, I'm not telling you to imagine their hand in yours physically and trying to feel that in your hand. I'm talking about internally. How would it feel to be in that awareness? How would it feel to be in that brain of that version of you? Like really step into that thought, turn that imaginal act into an actual experience, like just kind of teleport yourself, right? It's like you kind of do a switch and just step into that timeline. And how would it feel for just 1 second if that was true, if you were actually holding your partner's hand? And you're going to notice when you really contemplate that, like, wow, if that was true, oh my God, I'd feel so relieved. And even me, doing that, I just thought of something and I felt relief for it, because in that moment, I just identified with that imaginal act. I didn't use my reasoning mind. I didn't logic my way out of it. I understood creation is finished, and therefore what I'm looking at is an actual probable timeline. It's something I could experience. I'm looking at what's already created. I understand that my desires are promised to me, because that's another rule you guys have to remember. And when I say promised, it means you couldn't have this desire unless it was literally available for you to experience. God would not put you on earth to have desires and then to never be able to get them. Like, that's so cruel and inhumane, right? And it doesn't make sense. And a lot of people wouldn't want to live if that was the case. So trust me, it's like the fact you even want this person, or you want that money, or whatever it is, it means it's available for you to experience and to actually have as a physical reality, right? And it's there for your consciousness to experience. So when you think about, okay, if we were actually holding hands, like, oh my God, if I was in that moment, wow, I would feel XYZ. Like, you don't have to say this, like, it'll come naturally. But for me, it's like I would feel relief, right? I'd feel happy, or butterflies, whatever. In that moment, I felt different than I did 5 seconds ago. Because I first believed that imaginal act. In other words, I experienced it, and then I felt the emotions of it. I accepted that it was true without even having to say anything. I just really, as you know, even scripture tells you to be childlike in imagination to enter the kingdom of heaven. And, you know, so many other source teachers tell you that. You have to be like a child, playfully pretend, is something Seth would say, right? Through Jane Roberts. And so many other source teachers mention the same thing in different ways. And Neville even says, convince yourself, you know? So in that moment, I genuinely convinced myself, like, wow, like I'm actually in that experience, but I'm not like making it super vivid. I'm just like kind of daydreaming, but then I step into that daydream, and for just 1 second, boom. And once I experience that, I'm like, okay, I felt it. I planted that seed. And then all I do is I move forward in my day, and then the next time I think about that person, I then do the same thing, but a different imaginal act, right? I don't always do the same thing because it's boring. The other way is obviously the decision, right? So that's number 2. This is a different way. And if you're able to do this, by all means, please do this. So let's assume I'm manifesting an ex, right? And let's assume it's an ex, and it doesn't matter if it's a breakup that happened recently or if it's from 5 years ago. It doesn't matter, right? It's someone that I have experience with. I know their laugh. I know their sense of humor. I know what they would say. It's all that stuff. So I'm able to use those memories, and I'm also able to create new ones. Technically, it's all memories because it's already happened, but I'm able to kind of be like, okay, I'm thinking of an ex, I want her, so it's like, okay, in this moment, once again, I'm walking, living my life, you know, I'm just moving, and then out of nowhere, I realize I'm thinking of her. And this is where method number 2 comes in, where it's like, okay, I recognize right now I'm aware of her. Perfect. Now I know that I want her, and I'm aware that I don't have her, which is okay, but I understand if I want to experience her in my life in this moment, I might as well give her to myself because I crave her. So right then and there, knowing that creation is finished, knowing the rules to the law, knowing what the 3D is, that it's the old me, and knowing that what I continue to dominantly do on the inside becomes my outside. So it's like, when I know this for a fact, and I trust this, I realize all that's left to do is for me to accept it. So it's like I just told my last client, who I was on a call with a couple hours ago before this, it's like you're remembering who you are. It's as if you had amnesia and that desire hits you and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I already have it. So I just made a choice, right? I just accepted, oh, I'm thinking of her, boom, she's mine already. It's as if I asked myself, how would it feel if she was actually mine now again? And I either think of the moment that she texts me and says, I love you so much and I miss you, I want to work things out, or I think of like a moment that to me implies the end, or us getting back together in that moment, because for me it's easier to accept things in that moment of receiving, but sometimes I have less resistance and I go straight to like 3 months ahead, or I look back at things as if we've been together for 3 months or 2 months, doesn't matter. But I go to the moment of when I get that confirmation, and then it hits me like a truck. It's just boom, I feel this like gratitude, this relief. But it's because I believed first. Remember, it's the belief that matters. It's the knowing, it's the conviction. That's what you're chasing for. That feeling is a secret. The emotions is a byproduct of that. And of course it helps. So when it comes to that, that's what I want you to remember. So just like that, to kind of summarize what I just explained, it's the X popped in my head and it's like, I'm aware, okay, I'm aware of her. This is my choice and my time to mental diet. As soon as I recognize, hey, I want her in my life again, I want to date her again, I instantly accept she's mine. And it's like it's as if I leave my brain and I leave this timeline for just a split second, and I go into the timeline where I truly believe and accept that she's mine. And it's like I'm experiencing that that's a fact right now. I don't deny it. I just accept it because I understand that the fact I want her means she's already mine in other probable realities. It means the desire is promised to me, creation is finished, all these things that I mentioned, right? And knowing all this, knowing who I am, knowing what I am actually, and that my body is a vessel of my, it's a manifestation of my soul, and that, a piece of God, I'm a fragment of them, and all this stuff. All this is in the back of my head. And I understand, like, hey, I can just demand, I can just claim things and have that conviction. So in that moment, boom, I'm aware of her, instantly accept she's mine. I go to the moment that I just remember that she's already mine. And it's like I'm born again, right? That's the art of dying, right? If you're not aware of that lecture, go watch on my channel, The Art of Dying. And I go into detail. I cover that whole lecture for you guys. And that's what I practice. I practice dying that way. So if you ever wonder how I manifest, that's literally the main method that I use. I just think of what I want. want, like when I'm aware of it and I want it, I just accept that I have it. And then boom, because there's no contradiction, there's no reasoning mind, there's no logic that's kind of making me stop. No, I accept it because I understand creation is finished. And I understand that thought and that desire is a probable reality that's waiting for me to be experienced. For me to experience it, I should say. And, that's a simple way to do things, right? And the third way, and this is a different way that is a little different to what you might be used to, but it's a mixture of like knowing something's going to come, right? So you get fulfilled first. And so that way, how you do it, it doesn't matter. So as an example, it could be, pick your goal. Doesn't matter what your goal is, right? And let's say you want to get back with someone or you want money, doesn't matter. So we'll use money as this example. So let's say you're broke and you really want financial security. You want to be able to get yourself fancy things. It doesn't matter. And you start thinking to yourself, okay, like what if I actually could afford those things? And you start seeing yourself in your mind, like paying, for that bill at the restaurant with all the appetizers. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, that's so expensive. How can you afford that? And you're like, don't worry, guys. Like these little things you play with in your head, or, you see yourself at a nice store and you're paying for like a nice jacket or shoes, whatever it may be. And to you, doing that action makes you feel proud and feel abundant. Okay, good. You're abundant. So you felt it. You felt the wish fulfilled. You are now what I call, you're the gardener. You planted that seed. And if you watch the Seed Time and Harvest lecture that I covered not too long ago, Neville talks about it, right? It's about when you emotionally react, you've planted that seed. You're the gardener, right? And we're in God's garden. So now that I've planted that seed, all I got to do, and I told this to my last client too, it's like protect it. Right? Protect that seed and don't like taint it. Don't drown it. Don't overwater it. Don't like choke it. Let the seed germinate. Let it sprout. And all you got to do is cut off any dying stems, right? And anything that's negative that can cause it to kind of screw. Like it's like you screw up your, how fast something would come normally, right? Because everything's on its way the moment you plant that seed. But you can delay things, not destroy them. You can only delay. The results. So, and by the way, that's done through poor mental diet, identifying with lack way more than fulfillment, doubting yourself, questioning yourself, observing, your 3D reality as if it's a true reality. All these things, play a role in delaying your progress. So let's say I felt the wish fulfilled for money. And so I already know, okay, wait, I've experienced it. And I know because I've experienced it, I know for a fact that I am living in multiple realities where I'm wealthy. So all I got to do now is not contradict this little seed I planted and let it grow. And I just return to it when I want, right? So then the next time I'm thinking of that money, I then realize, wait a minute, I planted that seed. And because I'm going to continue returning to that seed and watering it through accepting I already am it, then I know for a fact that my 3D has no choice but to reflect it because that is law. It's like I said before, a weight at a gym will always be the same weight when you show up next year or next week or next day. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change. A 45-pound plate will always be 45 pounds. Just like the law will always be the law. It doesn't change. It's not going to screw you over. And that's why Neville tells people like, hey, don't trust me. Test for yourself. Test God and see. And that's what inspired me to start testing it myself, right? And I got results fast. And that's why for me, for years, I've been able to just splurge. Even before I was teaching, the people that know me that are close to me, they know I was able to splurge, work when I want, do what I want, and things like this. And it's like they understood that I can simply just choose to spend my money where I want it. And as the older I get and the more experienced I get with applying the law and testing different things out, it's getting better and better, right? And that's the beautiful part of the law is we're always growing, even myself. So now that I know I planted that seed and I felt the wish fulfilled, right? And this applies for SP as well. Because I felt it and I know that I'm returning to water it, meaning enter the wish fulfilled and accept that it's done. And then, of course, I oftentimes will feel that emotional result due to that new belief that I return to. Because I know I'm doing this, I know for a fact that in my future, it has to reflect. And I know that whatever I'm going to experience in the coming days or weeks, whatever, leading up until that change reflects that I want, that reflects the work I've been doing inside, I view it all as just the old me. And that's why I tell people, like I told my last client from a couple hours ago, I told her, okay, when you understand that you're returning to fulfillment, you then realize, hey, wait a minute, because I'm returning to fulfillment, even if tomorrow doesn't go the way I want, even if tomorrow nothing changes and you see lack of movement, understand it's all unfolding, right? You have no guarantee that it's not going to change tomorrow. There's no guarantee that you're not going to get results in 2 days, 3 days, in a week, or in 20 days. Who knows? But you can be rest assured, if your mental diet is on point and you're not contradicting yourself and you're spending a majority of your time when you're mental dieting returning to fulfillment as opposed to stalemating it, and you go fulfillment and then lack, fulfillment and lack, fulfillment and lack. Instead of doing that and you're more like fulfillment, 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 indifference, chill, just live your life, indifference. Oh, you observe a scary thought, no problem. That's not me. That's not who I am anymore. Doesn't matter. That's the old me. The old me would have reacted to that. I'm putting my faith in what I felt real, because what I felt real was a reality that actually exists. I couldn't do that if it didn't exist and if it wasn't a possibility. So because I know I felt it real, I know that I can have it. And I'm going to put more trust in that because I haven't done that yet consistently. So I might as well test this instead of repeating the same results and getting nothing and then expecting a better result, right? So you kind of observe things from the eyes of God. You kind of realize like, hey, wait a minute. These thoughts I don't have to react to. Like, I'm telling you guys, you are the creators of your reality. You decide what you want to react to. Nobody in this world can make you react to anything that you don't want to. And even if you react without realizing it, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You have plenty of opportunities to fulfill yourself in the future afterwards, right? So it makes up for it, right? It's okay. So don't think that, oh, because I reacted, I screwed everything up. No, don't install those beliefs on yourself, right? And don't let anyone do that. So it's just like me, when I know, hey, I felt the wish fulfilled and I'm going to continue feeling the wish fulfilled, right? I know it has to reflect. And even just thinking of that, it gets me in the wish fulfilled. It's like a rubber band. It's like you pull one way, you shoot it, and then it's like it bounces back. And it's like a boomerang effect, I guess. And you realize like, wait a minute. Me trusting that it's going to come, and that gets me thinking of, oh, what about that moment when it finally arrives? What would I be doing as this person? And you're going to realize you snowball that, you avalanche that momentum, right? You turn that little snowball into a big snowball. And that's what you're aiming for, right? You know that you felt the wish fulfilled, and you know that you're mental dieting properly, and you know that you're observing the 3D for what it is, the old you, the past you, and you know that starting now, you've began doing the inner work, and you've began returning to who you want to be in the future experience in your timeline, right? And in this 3D world where we view time as a certain way. But if you know that you're going to be that person in the future, as long as you trust that, as long as you trust because I felt it, it's real, and I'm going to keep feeling this more than anything else, then it's guaranteed, I'm telling you, it's guaranteed that your 3D is going to change. There's going to be a bridge of incidents that's going to lead you to, in other words, an experience that matches what you've been feeling and accepting as fact within. Just like with love, right? If you're manifesting an ex, it doesn't matter if she pisses you off. And trust me, I've had things in my life that that are in my face, and it pisses me off sometimes. And I catch myself arguing in my head about it, and I laugh because I'm like, why am I doing this? It's delaying my progress. And it's so funny because it's so pleasurable to argue and to, kind of be like, oh, like, you kind of like go through the steps of like what you're doing with your life, why you're doing this, why you allow this to happen, and blah, blah, blah. And then you realize it's all a waste. In those moments, catch yourself and don't let yourself finish those thoughts. Realize this doesn't help me. And instead, you realize, okay, I know that I'm mental dieting, and I know that I'm the creator of my world. And if I get to choose what I react to, no matter how much it pisses me off, even if your SP is pissing you off, or they're saying things, or they're not giving you what you want, or, there's lack of movement in any form, or they're neglecting you or choosing other people over you, trust me, the more you sit there angry at them, the more you're going to manifest that tomorrow's the same way and the same way and the same way. Instead, realize, like, you got to cut that habit out. You got to realize that doesn't benefit me. And that's when you realize, okay, if that doesn't serve me, I have to make a choice to stop doing this to myself then. Love yourself enough to do that, okay? And when you realize, okay, then I can just focus on what's going to happen because I felt it real and I continue to feel it real. And because I keep going back to that and I'm indifferent to the 3D, no matter how hard it is, just work on that. And then I'm indifferent to my negative thoughts, knowing that that's not who I have to identify with. It's a choice. Then you realize, okay, guys, then I don't have to worry about anything. And instead, your job is to be indifferent on your journey and then practice going to fulfillment, right? Bring heaven down to you when you want it and then return to it. Make a habit, catch yourself out of it, boop, go right back through any way that I mentioned in this video, right? And there's so many other ways, but we're already like 24 minutes in and I said I'd keep this short and I lied. I'm sorry, guys. I just have so much to teach you guys and like there's so much in my head and like I could do another 24 minutes easily in this, but I'll probably do another video explaining some other, methods. But those, like, that is the gist of like the mental diet and the circumstance and how to view circumstances and how to trust yourself and to know what you're doing is correct, right? Use anything like that that kind of helps you, and realize that it doesn't have to be this hard process. It's a gentle dance with your partner, right? Guide yourself, guide your mind. That's your dance partner, right? And you decide where you're stepping. You decide where your hand goes. You decide everything. And remember that you are in full control. I don't care how bad your SP is pissing you off. I don't care how bad that, you know, that money, the lack of money is bothering you. I don't care what notices you're getting, what bills come in. Trust me. If you understand and you look at everything as if it's the past that's in front of you, and you trust what's in here as the present moment that's going to become the thing in front of you, and you stick to that way of thinking, I promise you, within 30 days, your life will change. You will be so shocked at what can happen when you are disciplined. So that being said, I love you guys very much. Thank you if you made it this far. And all I ask is you give thumbs up and a like if this video helped you in any form. And I wish you guys all the best, and happy hunting, guys. I'll see you guys very soon.